we have no home, so we sold everything. And we went to Portugal, Pakistan, Dubai, then to Germany.
How did you build that financial stability?
I didn't really like what I was doing. I was just doing it to make money, but I wasn't doing it to sort of fill my soul. I told my partners, I said, hey, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I want to travel the world. I want to start a marketing firm.
All right, guys, welcome back to the FreedomVest Podcast. Today, I'm super excited to have Derek Peterson. He's a serial entrepreneur, investor, high-performance coach who has built, scaled, and exited multiple companies in real estate, branding, marketing, and also healthcare. He's raised over $80 million in capital and led marketing tied to over $35 billion in assets under management, as well as 225,000 multifamily units, because he is the real deal. Derek, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. So why don't we get started here? Just give me some background. Like, what's your story? How do you get into real estate? You're also the host of what's Millionaire?
Close. We call it's a YouTube channel and a brand that my wife and I launched called Rich and Homeless once we decided to go nomadic. So we took all our businesses and our life and we took it on the road. And the rich is rich in experience, rich in culture, rich in life, but also financial stability, competence in that area, because you do need money to do some things. And the homeless part is we have no home, so we sold everything, which I can get into in a minute. You want me to start there, or do you want me to start?
Just for everybody listening here, where are you right now? Because I know you're traveling. You've been traveling for the past 6 months, and you've been all over the map.
Yeah, I've been all over the map. So I'll start here. We left in August of 2024. We sold our house in one day. Lived in an Airbnb for a little bit before we sent daughter off to college, and we walked out the door, and we all walked out the door effectively together. Send her off to college, another daughter to college, and that was it. And we went to Portugal for 3 months, which was amazing. Then from Portugal, we went to Pakistan, then Pakistan to Dubai, then to Germany, back home to the States for the holidays. Then we went to New Zealand the first part of 2025 for 2 months, which was incredible. My favorite place on earth so far. Then we came back to the States to visit some family. Then we just went to Phoenix, Arizona just a few days ago for a groundbreaking ceremony for our Build to Rent communities we're doing in the Phoenix MSA. And now we're driving to Colorado over 10 days to meet another business partner for our triple net lease real estate company. And we're just hitting like Moab. And I'm currently at the Grand Canyon at a Starbucks. So I'm sitting outside of a Starbucks. I got a dumpster to my left. I got Starbucks in front of me. And this is the best backdrop I could give you, brother. I was hoping to do it over the Grand Canyon, but the cell phone reception is a little spotty out there. That would have been a little bit more epic. So yeah,
it's good enough, man.
Right now.
No, it's good enough. And for anybody listening, you guys have to check him out on YouTube. Like, this guy's been skydiving and bungee jumping and doing all this crazy stuff all over the world for the past couple months, as he's also doing business. So how do you actually get here? How did you build that financial stability to now be able to just travel full time and have that freedom and do anything you enjoy, really? So maybe we backtrack a little bit and just hear that backstory.
Yeah, man, it's been a journey. I think I took the traditional route that a lot of people take out of college. It kind of fell prey to the traditional path, which is, go to college, get your piece of paper, go get your corporate job, get your 401k, have a few kids, and then, you're supposed to turn 65 and then start to live your life and then die. And it was probably like my late 30s. I was like, that doesn't seem like a really cool plan. I'm not signing up for that. I want to go a bit of a different direction. I had worked in the OR medical device sales space at this time. I decided to open a medical distribution company on my own. So I started a side hustle, right? And that's where I think it starts for a lot of people who want to sort of dip their toe in the water and see if they're, they can take a run at their own business. Maybe you were similar to yourself, and you just, you kind of take that corporate job, you dip your toe in the water, and you start to see some success. And I got lucky in the medical device space. I got lucky with a product, and it exploded, right? We exploded. And my second year in that space, I made a couple $1 million in a year. And at that point, I was like, I'm the man, right? Like, I know how to do this. I know how to create a great business. And I just thought I could walk on water at that point. I was like, this is easy. I should have done this a while ago. And it was going great until it didn't. And then I started to learn some lessons about the true side of entrepreneurship, right? And all the nuances of it. When the money's flowing in, everything's great. But sometimes we get lucky, and I did. So I got that taste at least. But then I went to the dark side for a bit in terms of understanding, choosing the right partners, understanding all the nuances of operations, making sure you choose the right path when you go down that entrepreneurial route. And it took me 5 years to figure that out, man. I stayed in the medical distribution space, scaled another company, and that went well. But inside, I didn't really like what I was doing. I was just doing it to make money, but I wasn't doing it to sort of fill my soul. And as you start to get a little bit older, you start to care a little bit less about making money after you've made some. You want to make sure that you're doing things that, your passion is sort of aligning with your profession. So decided to, it was 2018. I told my medical distribution partners, I said, hey, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm not interested in the medical distribution space. I want to travel the world. And
So before we get into the marketing firm, I just want to pause there for a second and do a comment because I was having a thinking session yesterday. I don't know if you read the book, what's it called? The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. Awesome book, and it just gets you thinking about like dumb tax that you've paid during your whole business journey on stuff and things that you've done by being either such an optimist and just getting emotional, those stories that you tell in your head that you're just, because that happened to me. Like I was in e-commerce. I was scaling this mid 7-figure company. I was thinking this was going to go to 8 figures. And I think you've heard my story, but in the end, instead of scaling to 8 figures, I could have had an exit. It was back when COVID had just started and everybody was getting into e-commerce. These aggregators were buying these companies for crazy multiples. So I could have had a huge exit. And instead, I paid the dumb tax of just thinking that I was invincible, that I could just keep scaling, that nothing could stop me. And I also faced the same exact obstacles where back down and then you start growing again. So I love that because people think that entrepreneurship or being a business owner is like a straight line. But if there's this like up and down, up and down. And sometimes you don't even know how you're going to make it to the next day. And then other times it's great. And right now you're probably in that great, really amazing time, right? So, then you got into your marketing agency.
Yeah. So I started a sort of a side hustle where, with building the medical distribution businesses, the thing that I enjoyed the most was the marketing aspect of it. Just felt good. I liked it. Seemed intuitive. It was some of the other nuances of the business that I didn't enjoy as much. And I thought that if I could start a marketing firm and get really good at that, I could eventually have this fee for service type of an arrangement in the beginning, but eventually get to a point where I could leverage that skill set, honed by working with other different companies to be able to build other businesses myself or use that as my way through the door to be part of a business, to grow it. And that was the thought. This is back in 2018. And I also thought, I was like, this entire company could be built remotely. So one day my kids get to a certain age, we could just travel the world full time. And it seemed like a distant thought at that time, right? It just seemed kind of like a distant thought. So we started a marketing firm, my wife and I, and then we also started a travel company, like travel agency. And the reason we started the travel business was twofold. One, I felt if we really wanted to travel like ballers, we needed to immerse ourselves in that industry, right? We needed to understand it, all the nuances, all the ins and outs, just become ninjas at it. So I had her kind of focus on that. And I was like, I'll focus on the marketing firm and we can kind of figure this out over time. So we went down this path. And in 2019, we went on this around the world honeymoon, 2 months, completely circumvented the globe. And my marketing firm had just started really getting kicking. I had 1 employee, it was me. I had like 3 clients and we had this new travel company. And we started shooting content and heading out and having a good time. And it was in that moment we had the absolute time of our lives, right? We were like, this is what we need to be doing. We need to be traveling full time. This is it. So we came back at the end of 2019 and 2020 hit. We all know what happened then, right? And COVID hit. And, you talk about those ups and downs earlier, and we're all going to have them. We're all going to be thrown kind of shit and curveballs in our lives. And it's how we respond and react to that. In the worst moments, you can look at it and you can focus on the problem, or you can focus on what opportunity can come from that problem. And I've learned through those ups and downs that if you focus on the upside of that, there's always a silver lining in that garbage. And with COVID was a blessing for us, for our business. Why? Because when I started to realize everything was shutting down, I was like, well, wait a second. All these businesses are now starving, right? Restaurants need to figure out how to do things digitally. We work with a bunch of churches who are trying to take all of their, all their sermons and do it in a video format and stream it to people at home. So our marketing firm completely exploded in 2020. So it was actually a blessing for us. And it really sort of leapfrogged me into bringing on staff, creating more systems and processes. But I was still heavily ingrained in the business, right? I was still a hands-on kind of guy. I was inside of it. I didn't get the operations side of the business. And I was okay with it because I was stuck. I was glued to a chair, right? You couldn't really do much during those time periods. And that business really started to take off. And it was in 2020 that I had started to do some work. In 2019, 2020, started to do some work with a lot of real estate operators. And I was an investor, always in real estate. And after we did one brand, it led to another brand, which led to another brand. And after about a dozen of them, I asked this one guy, his name was Tim Lyons at Cityside Capital, just kind of had a connection with the guy who was a good dude. I was like, hey, how do I get into this business? How do I raise capital? How do I start to stand up some of these assets? What's the process? And he just put a bug on my ear. He said one thing, and it changed my life completely, right? It was just one moment. We've all had them. We can remember them. And he was like, and it went back to the original idea I had back in 2018, which is, he's like, well, why don't you leverage your skill set of marketing to be able to work with some of these operators and some of these folks to be able to help them raise capital, and they'll give you possibly a piece of the pie or be a partner with you. So I remember I was like, huh. So my wife and I we'll walk for a walk on the beach after we did this video shoot with Tim. And I was like, you know what? We're going to do that. We're just going to do that. And it was just in that moment, just made a decision to seek that out, put it out into the universe, believed in myself and our ability to do that, completely rebranded our marketing firm to be monomaniacally focused on just working with these companies. And lo and behold, led to one partnership, which is now blossomed to, we're building 500 units in Phoenix. We just had a groundbreaking ceremony the other day. I mean, multiple years later, we're popping champagne bottles, over pieces of dirt with 50 investors that flew in from, all over the country. And now I'm driving to Colorado. We just raised close to $10 million over the last 3 months for our triple net lease business. So 2 partnerships, 2 businesses sprung out of this from that one conversation with that one guy who put the bug in my ear. So it's been
for me, it was actually, I realized the exact same thing, that it was all marketing, by watching your videos and then Lance Peterson. And that's when it clicked for me. I'm like, capital raising is just sales and marketing. And I'd been doing that with e-commerce. I've been building funnels, landing pages, running ads. And the moment I realized just how everything's just sales and marketing, then for me, it also clicked. I'm like, I can just leverage other people's money and go build bigger businesses, get the economies of scale, give the investors really good returns, but I'm not tied to just my capital. So for me, that was like an eye-opening moment. It's one of those like moments where like a light bulb and something changes inside of you where you're like, oh, wow, like this is definitely the path. So let's talk about your team, because it's really interesting how you've decided. I know you visited your team out in Pakistan. How many people do you have? And are they all remote? Do you only hire from Pakistan? And why Pakistan? Because that's really interesting that you chose Pakistan specifically. I know they're solid as developers. They got some good stuff. I've worked with a couple of them, but why have you gone all in on Pakistan?
when COVID really kind of hit the fan back in 2020, my wife and I were actually about to go on a cruise ship. And we're in the Dominican Republic, and it was Thursday night, and I get a phone call from the cruise line. They're like, all cruises all over the world are shutting down. We're like, and in my mind at the moment, I'm like, oh God, I'm like, this COVID thing, it's just going to blow over. I'm like, let's just go to Mexico. So we got in a plane, we flew to Mexico, and I remember being on my floor, like on a foam roller in Mexico, while the whole world was shutting down, just ignoring it. And I was talking to a developer that I found on Upwork. His name was Ali. He was in Pakistan. And he's my first developer that I hired. I had done the brands before, and I was hiring my first developer. And he just happened to be in Pakistan. It was just luck of the draw, right? And I hired actually 3 of them because I figured one of them was probably not going to pan out, or maybe 2 of them. So it was just luck of the draw. And just started to develop a connection with this guy. You know, this is like 6 years ago. And we found a nice groove. We brought in a CRM. We started working together, and that led to us needing another developer and another developer and another developer. And he had these connections, so he started to bring these guys in, and we had this office in Karachi, Pakistan, that started to build out. And but then, over the years, I would work with people in the Philippines or India and some of these other places, and people in the States, because I've got employees in the States. I've got 3 employees in the States, and everyone else is outside of the States. We have a video studio in Texas, and then we have 2 in Texas, and then we have 1 in the Carolinas. And it over the years, hiring, firing, all that stuff, it led me to this place where I started to have this like affection for those from Pakistan. And I saw their loyalty, their work ethic, their ability to articulate the English language well, which is important when you're a client-facing individual, and just the follow-through. I had no issues, but it was kind of counterintuitive to the brainwashing we get about that country from living in the States. Like, most people are like, "Oh, you hire people from Pakistan? What are you, crazy?" And I had 0 issues with it whatsoever. So much so that I went to go visit them just recently and received those same comments from folks when people were like, "Wait, you're going from Lisbon, Portugal to Pakistan?" Like,
You
they're
did
like, "You're
a
gonna die."
YouTube video, right? It was a crazy video. It was trending on YouTube for a while as well.
It was, yeah. We did a 2-part video series when we went to visit Pakistan. So we had, the staff has grown. We have, at this point, I think we have 11 people now. No. 13 people in Pakistan right now. 2 offices. We're actually start opening another office in Lahore, Pakistan. So we have Karachi and Lahore. And I've got 2 guys. Their both name are Ali, but we named one of them. His name's Ali Nawaz. We called him Naz. Yeah, we did a 2-part video series. We hung out with these guys for 10 days in Lahore for 5 days. Then we went to the mountains for 5 days. And I had the absolute time of our lives with these guys and learning their culture. We stayed with them. So we had a true, authentic Pakistani experience. And honestly, it's been one of the favorite places that we've been so far. It's raw, it's authentic, but the people often make the place. You know this, right? And the hospitality and the love of Pakistani people is unmatched. I've never experienced anything like it anywhere in our lives. We would go into places, man, and like we'd go to eat, they wouldn't let you pay. Almost every place we went, we tried to pay to eat. We'd eat at a nice restaurant, and they're like, no, you're not paying. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not paying? They're like, you came to our country, thank you. You're not paying. And that was weird, right? I didn't get that at Starbucks today when I pulled in, you know. And if some dude from Pakistan walked into Starbucks here, like I'm talking at like Starbucks, and like we went to like Tim Hortons and some of these places that are like chain places in Pakistan, and they were like, they don't see a lot of Americans, hardly ever. So they really appreciated that we're coming there to show them truly what that country is about. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, beautiful people. It's got its areas, but let's be honest, so do the States.
Yeah. I love that, because for me, I also hire most of my teams remote. Like, I only have people in the US for boots on ground and stuff that really can't be outsourced. But aside from that, everybody else in my team is either in Colombia or in the Philippines. And I've hired developers from Pakistan. I've had people from India. but I've kind of just found my tribe and my groove. Obviously, my being Colombian makes it really easy to also have similar cultures. They're on the EST time zone, super smart people. So for me, I just clicked with the Colombian people, and I love working with people from South America. But I guess for
Yeah.
you, it's been the same, but all the way across the world. So getting into some value here, capital raising. I know you have a very unique approach to raising capital, specifically around niching down, right, and building that avatar. So for anybody trying to get into the space, like what would you say are your top tips and biggest lessons you've learned for anybody that wants to maybe raise capital for either their business or real estate?
Yeah, great question, man. I've learned a lot over the years from raising capital myself, for other operators when I first started, then becoming an operator, raising capital for our own deals. And obviously, we built over 400 brands in this space. So our job as a marketing firm is to take an operator or an allocator, a capital raiser, a fund manager, and how do we have them stand out, right? Because at the end of the day, what is marketing? It's just getting your attention, right? How do I get you to stand out on typically this device right here? I'm holding the cell phone right now for those who are listening. How do you get the attention of the investor? There are a lot of people out there with their hand out, right? They get the greatest deal, they get the greatest widget, they're going to get this return or that return. At the end of the day, that's the last thing we actually focus on when we do branding for people, right? I found over the years that, and I think those of you who are listening right now, and Jacobo, you could probably agree with this, that the reason people typically invest is for one reason, and that's gut feel, right? They know you, they like you, and they trust you. And when you go to the friends and family route, that's pretty easy, right? And actually, sometimes raising capital from friends and family can be a lot more difficult than we think it's going to be. But there's that pre-established relationship, right? So people ultimately in businesses are all the same thing. They're a solution to a problem, right? So if I'm Pizza Hut, the problem that that they can solve for me is I'm hungry and I want pizza delivered to me really quick. If I'm a plumber, the problem I can solve for people is you got a leaky faucet. I can be there. So how do you communicate that? But how do you communicate and convey trust, right? That I can trust that you're going to solve my problem, right? So from an investor's perspective, the problem that they have, there's different levels of awareness that people go through. Some people are problem aware, right? So I could be that tech employee that isn't aware of the problem that I have, that my income and my retirement is tied to stock options. So as a brand, communicating and making them aware of the problem, right? Then aware of the solution, and then that they could be one of those options to solve them in terms of that solution, right? So you take somebody who isn't aware of the issue, right? Then you take them to, okay, there is an issue and this is how you would solve it. Not just with me, but with anybody else. And oh, by the way, I do this and I can solve your problem. So taking people through that learning curve and that journey is where I think trust is built and trust is established. And I see a lot of brands, they want to remove themselves and they want to remove their personality and the unique skill sets and things that they've learned through their journey that make them uniquely qualified to be able to provide value and be the person you're going to trust and put your money in. Because while people are investing in a building, right? So if I invest with you, right, in your boutique hotels, and I look at your cash on cash, your IRR, I look at all your pictures, I look at your deck, I could burn that. I don't care. I'm going to look at you. Right? So do I trust you? Do I trust that you've gone through a journey? You've made some mistakes. You're vulnerable with your audience and your marketing on the things that you've learned through your period. Like, what is your legacy story? How did you get there? Communicating that in your branding and letting people know, first of all, you're teaching them and you're being vulnerable, right? Those two things create trust. If I can teach you and I can be vulnerable, it shows that you're real and shows that you're raw. So for a lot of folks that are looking to raise capital, show the true side of who you are. And here's the biggest thing. I'm taking a long time to get to this point. Authenticity. So if you're truly authentic, people connect with that. When you're full of shit, people can see it, right? So being completely authentic, showing the true, virtuous side of you and allowing people to connect with who you are, That is ultimately what gives people that gut feel that I mentioned earlier as I've kind of gone through this. And that's what gets people to invest. The fanciest pitch deck, all that stuff, you need it, right? But ultimately, people are not investing in that. They're investing in you. And you're always going to invest in somebody that you trust. And the only way you can develop trust is through that authenticity, which is, again, like I said, through the vehicle of teaching and through the vehicle of vulnerability. So that would be my biggest point to tell people is threading that into your branding, which we can get into. That's what we focus on as an agency, is getting it to be a mirror of who you are.
I love that. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I learned from you, and the stuff that we were going through as we went through some of the coachings together. And it was the authenticity part, because obviously for me, a big part of my life has also been travel. I have a very unique story and a very unique background coming from ecom, getting into real estate. And obviously, there's been stuff that we've discussed around my age and around the type of projects that I want to do. And you've always told me, just stick to your guns, like tell your real story, be authentic. Don't try and be somebody that you're not. Like if you're not the type of guy to be wearing a suit and a tie, like don't try and walk around acting like you're not, like, because people can smell that bullshit. Like you need to be authentic. And like you've always said it, if somebody's not going to invest with you because of who you are, well, it doesn't matter. He wasn't going to invest with you anyway. So don't try and be somebody that you're not, and just try and actually be a magnet to those people that resonate with you, that like your lifestyle, that respect you, that just think that whatever it is you're doing is cool, right? And you shouldn't try and hide who you are. And I think you embody that perfectly. Like you're raising capital, traveling full time all over the world, jumping out from planes and doing all this crazy stuff. So I think you are the real embodiment. Like you embody this authenticity part, and just like you don't care. And if you're repelling some people and you're niching down. So going into that aspect as well, and to like talk to us about like how you always decide also to like niche down, and like you don't care if you're talking to a smaller audience, because for you, like the riches are in the niches, right?
Yeah, 1,000%, man. I mean, the riches are in the niches. You know, I can use myself as an example with our marketing firm. We used to just market to anybody. Like when we first started, I was like, I must cast a wide net. I don't want to, deter me getting this client or that client, and I felt that if I it's logical, right? If I shrink my audience, I'm going to have less opportunity. And I read enough books and listened to enough podcasts and watched enough YouTube videos where I was being taught, no, it's actually the polar opposite. And that it didn't make sense to me for a while. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna deploy this. And when I did that, my business absolutely exploded. So, and I think the reason for that is it adds another layer of relatability. People, when they arrive at a website, when they arrive in a community, when they arrive at social media and they follow certain people, it's because they connect with that person and where they are in their journey. It's either they're on a similar path or that's where they want to be, right? And if it's really broad and ambiguous, it's hard to kind of figure out like who you are and what are you doing, what are you about. But it's very specific. These people that have these highly specific channels, you just saw them explode. And I saw this case study, this guy that had this podcast that was about, the like wave radios that like you listen to like police Dopplers on. It's like a thing. Like like my grandfather had one. It was like a police Doppler, and you just listen to them chirping, and it just seems silly. This guy started this podcast about it, and think about it. It's a very specific niche thing.
Yeah.
Very small. Exploded because that group of people is just really into that shit, right? So they're really going to follow you. Now, if that guy's channel was broad and he talked about it here and there, he wouldn't explode. But because he was very specific about these little wave radios, people were like, that's my guy, right? So with your branding, you want people to arrive, like with you. You travel the world, you're a young guy, you're excelling quickly. Be that, right? So those people that want that and are excited about that, they're going to connect with you. The person that wants to see you in a suit, not your guy, right? Or not your gal. And that's okay, right? So being authentically you to the greatest degree possible, right? We've built brands for people that politically lean one way or another, and that they bleed it, right?
Yeah. Give
They're
us
all
give us some
about,
examples of clients of yours, because I've seen some pretty cool ones. Like there's an immigrant doctor. If you can just give us a couple of examples, because that's really going to help the audience see what you're talking about.
yeah, we work with folks that, like for example, we work with a gal. She was a former professional soccer player, like World Cup level, and she decided, she exited sports and struggled a little bit because you go from making money to like now I got to transition. I'm like 20 something or early 30s, and now I got to transition to this new career. So what's life after the game? So she struggled with that. Shares that story, gets into investing. She wants to teach people that are in the game, like start investing now, right? Because you're probably going to age out of sports in like your mid 20s. So we created an entire brand that used vernacular verbiage. The hero image says, life after the game. Instead of having like the resources section of a website where we give education, we called it, I think, like the coaching room. So we kind of gave it this whole athletic vibe. All the pictures on it were athletic. So you've got a capital raising website that's got pictures of sports all over it. Right?
And she's racing from other athletes.
So that's her niche. She's looking for like current and former, professional athletes that are looking to be able to invest their capital so that when they age out of the game, they're not screwed, right? Because a lot of kids that get into sports and they're in the early 20s, they have no financial literacy and they're out buying Lambos and houses. So she wants to teach them, like, dude, one day, you're one ACL away from this being over for you. So invest smartly, right? Invest intelligently. In fact, look at Floyd Mayweather. I don't know if you've seen what he's doing lately. So that guy made a lot of money, right? But he also spent a lot of money. Now he's got a whole real estate game that he's into. The other MMA guy that's from Ireland, I forget what his name is. He recently woke up and now he's investing in that type. These are just big names. I think those two actually had a fight, and maybe that's how they both got into it together. We work with a company called Farm Raised Capital. His name's Mike Downey. Mike's actually raised for both my companies substantial capital, and he is a true farmer. I mean, this guy, you meet him, he's like, this is a hard-working.
I've seen his website. Like the video is him with his iPhone. Talk to us about that, because you even told him shoot with an iPhone. Don't use professional cameras. Like shoot a video from your what is this? Like a farm truck? Like it's a pretty unique website. Tractor, yes.
So I'll give you a contrast of two guys that have raised capital for us that we've built both their brands, right? And one's a suit wearing corporate guy and the other's a farmer, right? And they're both great dudes, but they're doing the same thing, but we took a different approach. So we'll start with Gib Irons. He's at Irons Equity. Gib's he's an attorney, a trial attorney. And Gib wakes up in a suit. He goes to bed in a suit. He has some of the most cleanest professional content you'll ever see from somebody. Maybe you've seen his stuff. And the guy is polished, right? Perfect hair. Everything is super crisp. And he's looking to attract that type of individual that likes to wear a suit, that is more of the corporate Wall Street kind of vibe. And he has that demeanor, he has that tone, and he has that conviction in the way he talks. And that appeals to that audience. So his website, his video was shot in a super professional studio, all mic'd up and immaculate lighting, beautiful. And the color palette is more like darker blues, grays, and whites, right? So that conveys that kind of professional corporate vibe. And the language that we use is very much in alignment with that. It's very formal. Now, let's flip to Mike Downey at Farm Raised Capital. Mike is a farmer, and he has a business where he helps like legacy farmers kind of keep their farms in the family or get it up to another family. But he teaches financial literacy in that space. And he lives on a farm. He's got a farm. His website is green, earth tones, and his verbiage and his wording on the site is more casual. And it's very sort of right-leaning, and it's about freedom and keeping the money away from the government, right? Because farmers, they're about family and they're about, F the government, right? So Mike's video, we didn't do in a professional studio. I said, we're going to shoot it on your cell phone. I want you to wear a hoodie and a hat and go sit in a tractor and shoot this thing. I want it to be shaky. I want it to be raw and authentic, because Your farmer audience is going to connect much better to that. If they watched Gibbs' video, they're like, F this guy. He's the antithesis of what they want to be associated with. They hate guys in suits, right? They think government, they think control, where Mike's got, a dipper in. It looked like, maybe, I don't know if Mike, if you're listening, if you had a dipper in, but it looked like he had a dipper in, which is, he's out in the tractor. There's corn behind him. Totally different vibe, same outcome. What's the outcome they want? They want to raise capital, and they both raise for the same deals, right? So they both raise for the two companies that we have. They both raise very similar capital to different audiences with different branding and approach. And it's a true reflection of who they are. So it kind of goes back to the earlier point. It's a reflection of who they are. They're authentically themselves, right? Mike's not wearing a suit. Gibbs not wearing a hat sitting in a tractor.
I love that. You're also using that, like the hero framework from building a story brand, right? I think I've seen some videos where you talk about this and how you're just taking the person wanting to invest and they're the centerpiece, and it's all about them and how you can make their life better. It's not about you. You're just somebody that was able to overcome those obstacles to live that desired lifestyle, and then the people coming in are actually the heroes, and you're just the person trying to help them reach their goals, right?
Framework by Don Miller, who wrote the book. Great book. I encourage anyone who's listening to this, who has a business, who wants to do anything with marketing, read the book, but read it about 5 times. Because the first time you read it, it's actually a pretty hard concept to kind of grasp onto. But the concept, I'll try to dumb it down real simple. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version, which is, most businesses, when you arrive at their website, they have somewhat of what I'll call an egocentric approach, which is they're like, hey, welcome to our website. Look at all the amazing things we've done. You should work with us because we're great, right? Look at us. We're awesome. We've done all these things. And this is the features and benefits of the problems and the things that we can do. And that's cool. That was the old way in which people did marketing. But Don Miller said, no, there's an architecture and there's a structure to the way in which we get to the heart of an individual through the art of storytelling. And storytelling is what gets people to connect. And we've all watched movies where we get that choked up feeling, right, in those certain moments. And there's other movies we watch and we don't get that feeling. And if you break down the architecture of those stories and the way in which they built the characters and delivered the story, it's a science, it's a framework, right? So he takes that and wraps it into marketing and the way that you build your brands, your websites, write your email copy. And in effect, what it says is it flips the script, like you just said, right? Which is the hero framework. So I'm not the hero in the journey, like, hey, we're great, we're awesome, we do all these things. It's no, you're great, the customer, right? So you're great, we understand you, you're the hero, we understand your problem that you have, and we can be the guide to get you there. So to convey it to like a popular movie most people should understand in Star Wars, they're Luke Skywalker and you're Yoda. So when you take that approach in story brand copywriting, well, now we have ChatGPT where we can start to work ChatGPT to help us with some of our copywriting, understanding the story brand framework. It is super powerful. It's subtle. It's a small twist. It's about them, not you. But then you build authority quietly on your website by doing certain types of techniques to build authority. So it makes a huge difference. We started doing that 5 years ago. It's made all the difference, I think, for these companies and their capital raising efforts.
So to sum it up, riches are in the niches. You need to focus on making the customer your hero. It's not about you. And then you should also be unapologetically and authentically you. I think that pretty much sums up what this whole discussion has been about, right?
1,000%. Yeah, if you stick to those things that you just summarized right there and just focus on those very things, it can make a huge difference. And not in just your capital raising brand, just in your brand in general, regardless of what it is that you're referring to or talking about. But specifically capital raising makes a huge difference.
So aside from building a story brand, what other top 3 books would you recommend? Maybe business, mindset, just anything in general that has really been impactful in your life and your journey.
Atomic Habits. I think a lot
Great
of people
book.
talk about that one. That was a good one. Who Not How by Dan Martell. That was a game changer for me in terms of
Dan Sullivan.
systems and
Dan Sullivan.
processes. Was it Dan Sullivan? Okay.
Yep.
And the one that I don't think did a lot of play. This is more for the guys that are listening. It's called The Mask of Masculinity by Lewis Howes. And Lewis Howes is podcast host. He's got an okay podcast, but his book was actually really profound. And maybe just hit me at a time in a life where I needed it. But he just sort of talks about, as men, the different masks we wear. The athletic mask, the competitive mask. I won't get into the entire book, but it basically helped me understand why I did certain things based on societal pressures up until that point in my life, made me aware and conscious of it so I didn't do those dumb things going forward. And it really helped me in both my personal and professional life. I highly recommend that one for guys because it was like a profound punch in the face in a good way.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing those. And then you also mentioned ChatGPT a couple of minutes ago, and I know you're big into building custom GPTs and just automating as much stuff as possible. I've seen the stuff you build, and it's truly impressive, and it's honestly really cool. Could you maybe talk a little bit about this? I know it's hard without sharing a screen, but maybe talking about the type of stuff you're leveraging AI for, how you're building these custom bots, and really how much this has helped you save in terms of automations and productivity.
Yeah, ChatGPT is, it's the start of a new era, right? And not necessarily ChatGPT, but AI, right? And it is, when I saw this thing come out about a year and a half, 2 years ago, where it started to hit the mainstream, I started to play around with it. I was like, this is like the discovery of fire, right? This thing is absolutely insane. You could start to see the potential and where it was going to go. And I felt that if I didn't jump on it and start to just become absolutely obsessed with it, it was going to start to learn at such a pace and such a speed that I would be left in the dust. Not only myself, but any business that I was left in the dust. So I got to start using these tools. It's kind of akin in more of a smaller scale of like, I remember back in the day when email came out. That's how old I am. When email sort of first came out, I was like in college, and I had my first jobs, and I had my first boss would have his emails printed out. He's like, this email thing isn't going to last. This is stupid. This is a fad. And if you have that mentality with AI, you're going to be absolutely smoked and left in the dust. I'm actually amazed with the number of people. I've still never been on ChatGPT. It adds so much scale to your life and creates so much leverage for you in your businesses once you understand how to use it. It's the most powerful thing. You're going to see $1 billion company one day that's going to have one person in that company that's making $1 billion. And it's because they understand and learn how to leverage AI. I use AI in everything. The more you understand it, I'll give you a few use cases. The more you understand it, the more you can apply it in your life appropriately, right? So I say that with a double-edged sword. It should be used as a tool, just like any other tool, just like PowerPoint, just like a calculator, just like any type of tool that you use. It's just another tool in your pocket. When you understand the application of this thing, the difference between this and a calculator is every day it changes. Every day it gets smarter and faster and quicker. So if you own a business and you don't have someone that's on your team that's completely monomaniacally focused and dedicated on figuring out where AI is going and how to use it in your business, you're going to be left in the dust, right? So we have one full-time person.
You have a full-time person?
Yes, a full-time person. Their entire job is to take a look at our systems and our processes within our core. This is in the marketing firm, within our core business, and just, okay, how can AI make this better? How can we build a better system and a better mousetrap? So we became hyper focused on process. And you got to kind of create the shell first, and then inside of that shell, there's all these little things that you do every day that save you 10 seconds here, a minute there, an hour there. And over time, that adds up. So as a marketing firm, we leverage AI to help spark creativity, to be able to take processes that we used to do manually, where we train a bot. This is how I would do this. And we literally give it the mind dump, right? We call it a knowledge base, and you give it to a GPT and you spit it out. Just sent one to you the other day, right? I'll just use that as an example, where when we're working with a client to be able to build a pitch deck, we have a thesis in the way in which we architect our pitch decks. It's a 7-step sections that a pitch deck can have. So we created a questionnaire to extract the information from the client that are relevant and pertinent to those 7 steps. And then we trained an AI bot that like, hey, I'm going to ask all these questions and I want to give it to you and I want you to think of it this way and spit out an outline like this. We teach it. This is the way we do it. So I don't have to think about it because I used to do that and it would take me out. It would take us hours, right? Now it takes me, as long as it takes to tie your shoe, legitimately. So think about that time saved. And it's not that I want to save time for my staff so they can go just to jump off bridges and stuff like that, like I do. But now it allows us to scale, right? To be able to focus on other things. And the thing that we focus on is the human contact and the human touch point. So we're spending less time behind the computer, but more time face to face with our clients, delivering that experience. Because as an agency, we're very easily replaced by AI. But the more human contact and the human interaction and consultation that we can create and deliver as a customized creative agency, the more that client and that customer is going to feel that their hand is held, like they're not just being spit into an AI bot. We use AI as a tool, but when we face the customer, that can't be replaced. Not yet, until Elon Musk figures those robots out. But for now, we feel pretty safe that we can create a really good experience for the clients and all the customers.
So aside from pitch decks, because I've seen the bot, it's pretty cool because it will generate everything that you need to really create a deck in a couple of seconds. But aside from that, what's another business use case that you've seen just incredible applications? And then I want to talk about a personal one. I know you got one for traveling, so it's cool to see how you can use this for not only business, but then also your personal life.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple examples. So on the at 10Y, the build to rent company, we're doing ground up construction, right? We're building 5 communities simultaneously right now in Phoenix. That's a lot, right? And we want to update our investors as to what's going on with the permitting, whether it's horizontal or vertical construction, and there's a lot of nuance. So I meet with our team once a month, where we sit down, we have a conversation. I bring an AI bot. It's Fathom is the name of it. It's a Fathom bot that comes to the call, and I ask a series of questions and just shut up and listen and just let them tell me and give me the construction update. But then I trained a bot to be able to take that very complex information and distill it down into a writing style and an investor update that I can give to the investors. So it's very complicated construction lingo. How do we slim it down to something that is easily digestible and provides value to the investors so they know and feel that their project is moving along? And I used to do that manually. It would take hours, right? Until we trained a bot to take the transcript. Immediately after the call is done, it shoots it over to a bot. A bot distills it down, shoots it over into a Google document, then emails a Google document to me. And it all happens within a matter of like 5 minutes. And it's the investor summary, and I'll look at it and I might tweak it. And that's the thing with AI. You got to tweak it. You got to massage it. I might add a few things. Sometimes I don't. I send it to my partner. He looks at it, and then we send it to the EA and he sends it out. So that entire process that used to take a day now takes 30 minutes, the meeting. Everything else is done after that. So that's one example. On the personal side, we're full-time digital nomads. We live completely on the road. And one of the things I did not anticipate in this lifestyle, man, was like when you have like 2 weeks of vacation or a month of vacation or, 5 days, it's pretty easy to, figure out where you're going and what you're going to do. When you live full time on the road, it's absolutely overwhelming because you can go anywhere. You have infinite options. These are first world problems, but it was actually became a real problem where it was the indecision, and I had to create an SOP basically for how we're going to go to a new place. Like, so we're looking to come to, Medellin. And I was like, okay, how do I research this place? So I taught a bot my wife and I's tastes and preferences. She likes wine, massages. I like jumping off bridges and hiking. We both like food. So I trained the bot to understand these are the things that I'm interested in, so that when I give you a city, I want you to produce this thing in Excel that breaks down categorically by wineries, massage, adrenaline activities, hiking, and all these other categories. It'll break it down for me and give me a complete list. And when I say complete list, like I get the URL link to the website, I get the phone number, everything. So now I have this data that we can evaluate to go, yeah, will we go here? I use it also to evaluate locations by climate, right? So like we were going to come to Cartagena and we were literally about to book for a month. And then I was like, is it rainy season there? And I looked and it was. And I was like, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? So I had to retrain my bot to understand and evaluate the weather implications of a location. So, but the amount of time that we spent researching, think about how much time you spend research just going on a 1 week vacation. Like it's a full-time thing every week. It's like, where are we going? What are we doing? So now we've automated that process. And the last application I'll give you is we were just in Mexico City, Mexico, and amazing city, but it's not a tourist city. Stuff's not in English, and I don't speak Espanol like you. So I would have to take a picture of the menu and ask it to translate it. But I also taught AI what I like and what I don't like to eat. So it would give me the translation, then make a recommendation. So I would literally go in, take a photo, hit the button, and I got it to a point where I'd just be like, okay. And then it would translate my order into Espanol, and I would just show it to the waiter and be like, okay. And then up they went. So those are my AI hacks. Yeah, man.
That's genius. I love how system and process oriented you are. Honestly, that's the key to scale and scale efficiently. So I love that. So
Totally.
As we wrap up here, what's next for you? What's next for you in the next couple of months? And then also, I always like asking every single guest that's on this podcast this question, which is, what does freedom mean to you?
Great. So I'll start with where I'm going, then I'll answer that question. So next 10 days, we're going on our way to Colorado Springs through the slot canyons of Lake Powell, then 5 days in Moab. I'm going to be doing the famous Moab Canyon Swing, which is it's 400-foot jump into a canyon on a swing. And I'm contemplating doing a tandem base jump, which is about on the edge of dumb stuff that I'd be willing to do. So that one kind of makes me a little nervous, but I've seen this guy popping up on social media and it looked like it'll be pretty epic. So I might do that. And we're doing some hiking and all that stuff. Then we're going to go live on a cruise ship for a month because we have a travel business. We're going to go on 4 back-to-back cruises on 4 different cruise lines out of Miami. That could be amazing, or it could be the worst decision we've ever made. I'll let you know. And then we head to the Dominican Republic for a month, rented a house on the beach, and I'm gonna learn to kite surf. So that'll be an adventure all into itself because apparently it's really hard, but I figured, man, in a month I should probably be able to be, at least somewhat okay
sure.
on it. Yeah. So, but your freedom question, it's a great one. It's one that I've put a lot of thought into, and I have a clear answer for that. To me, freedom is 3 things. It's time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom. And so we talk about freedom, and people are like, hey, I just want to be financially free. Cool. That's great, right? You don't have to work, all that. But when you're like tethered, if you like to travel, which I find that most people do, when you're tethered to one place, that inability to travel is just another freedom, that autonomy that is just unlocks a new side of you because you're able to have access to different things, different foods, different cultures, and it just opens your mind. So that location freedom to me is of equitable importance to financial freedom. In fact, if I had to pick one, I would choose location freedom over financial freedom first. I'd rather work from the road than, be financially free and be tethered to one location. And then time freedom. That's the one that I think is probably the hardest for people to get. But when you get the trilogy of those 3 together, it's pure and total bliss and freedom. And I've worked my ass off to kind of get to that point. I work now because I want to, not because I have to. I enjoy what I do. But I work about 4 hours a day, 3 days a week on my businesses. And everything else is system and AI driven and process driven. We've got 5 different companies. And there's times where I might dive in a little bit more. There's seasons where I'll be working a lot more. There may be a day I'm working 10 hours because we're on a flight and I'll jam a lot of work in. But generally speaking, it's 10 a.m. here. I'm going to take 2 other calls, and by noon today, I'll be somewhere deep in the Grand Canyon with my wife, eating a sandwich that we got after a nice hike. So that to me is freedom. You get those 3 things nailed, then you're crushing it.
I love that, dude. And you hit it right in the nail, because that for me is freedom as well. And that's the reason why for the past 2 years, I've been just Airbnb-ing. Like, I don't even have a fixed yearly lease. I can pick up my stuff, which I am. End of the month, I'm traveling to Miami, relocating, and I might end up somewhere in California, or who knows, depending on where the projects and the hotels take me. I'm willing to relocate and stay flexible and just spend a couple months in California if it's needed. I'm looking at this castle and negotiating. So there's going to be more updates on that, but just staying flexible, being able to just pick up my stuff and go wherever it is needed, whenever that the time comes. And then if I'm not happy in some place, or I'm not finding as much value, which I told you, for example, one of the reasons I want to be back in the States is more networking, being closer to the action, just meeting people and growing my business, because I have big goals and ambition, but not having to be tied to any specific place. Like, I'm not a tree. Like, I don't have roots. I can pick up my stuff and move. So I love that, dude. And really honored to have you here. You have a really fresh perspective and different perspective to most people. And I think there's going to be a lot of value to anybody listening to this. So as we wrap up here, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, so probably the best place for people to connect with me if they just kind of want to get a one landing spot to be able to branch out to the different businesses and contact me for anything, even if you just want to have a chat. It's Derek Peterson, so DerekPeterson.life. So just go to derekpeterson.life, and it really is just sort of my personal brand website that is a launching spot to all the different things, whether you're looking for marketing, investing, travel, coaching, anything. We're launching.
You name it, he's got it.
Yeah, we got it. Like that guy that like opens his jacket. He's like, I got gold chains, I got watches, but yeah, we have a lot of things, but they're all centered around everything we discussed today, man, which is, building a life of freedom and autonomy.
Life by
and
design.
All the business I have, life by design, man, in 1,000%. But they're businesses that are in things that interest me. So I think, as people align those passions with their profession, when you're spending the majority of time on what you like, it doesn't feel like work. So that's what I'm hoping people can learn from this and learn from you, because you're doing much of the same. And it makes your day a lot more enjoyable.
Absolutely. Hey, brother, it's been an honor and a pleasure having you here, man. Thank you for your time, man.
Likewise, brother. I appreciate all your time as well.